hope's like 25 degrees. I mean, it's just like a winter wonderland out here. We come back down to Death Valley. We've been after a deer we call the Kansas 8. They've been locked down, and I'm hoping once he breaks off the doe, he'll come back down here at least for a day or two. Hey, buck, come around the point. That's a pretty good buck. Right there. Are you good? Here we go.
Pardon me and my tone. You can't step to my throne. They ain't working like me. I did this on my own. You asking where we been, huh? I don't know where to begin, huh? All this dirt on my skin. I just came here to win. I'm more than a man, I'm a monster. Somebody call a pastor, doctor. New York, London to Japan. I'ma show the whole world who I am. Boom.
The Raven Project is brought to you by Big Time. Attract, develop, grow. Case IH. Rethink productivity.
Dear Lord in heaven.
Hawk Optics. Vision accomplished. Deer Grow. Better food plots, bigger deer. ScentLock. The most effective whitetail gear ever made.
Better find myself some camouflage.
You know, have you ever had that deer that just gets under your skin over and over and over? I've not had one encounter, not two encounters, but 3 total encounters. You know, I was pumped when we first started running trail cameras this summer. He was one of the deer that was in the back of my mind that I really hoped had made it through. I found a shed off of him last year, and I hoped and prayed that he was going to be there back in that same area, and sure enough, right off the bat, he was one of the first mature deer that we started getting on trail camera, and I knew from that point, like, this was my boy right here. I'm trying to keep up with him. I'm trying to learn every single thing I can about him, and hoping that he kind of stays doing the same thing that he done the prior year, and hopefully, you know, sooner or later this year we get a crack at him.
So the good thing about the calcium in the plot start is the calcium in it is 30,000 times more soluble than calcium in limestone.
Okay.
So when you spread that limestone, not only does it take forever to break down to change that pH,
you're not getting
all that calcium as well.
Gotcha.
Whereas this, you're getting all that calcium, and it's immediately
30,000 times more?
30,000 times more.
Gosh,
soluble.
dang.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy thing is too, is like a lot of guys will go out and they'll just take a pH reading, and their soil, as far as nutrient wise, they've got pretty much what they need in the soil. They just don't have the right product on top of it to help break it down and utilize it.
Exactly.
If it's there and the plant can't absorb it, it don't do any good.
Exactly. So you could have ample limestone in your soil, but it's just not being used correctly. So this is going to help also break that down.
Gotcha.
Everything be more effective.
Out here,
all the other nutrients.
This isn't the greatest dirt in the world, so we need all the help we can get.
For sure. It'll make a huge difference.
Heck
Absolutely.
yeah. You know, the cool thing about that whole area down there in Death Valley was really this year, that was the only deer that we had on our radar down there. And we put probably the most effort, the most time in setting that place up. I mean, literally from creating the bedding right there and trying to keep him close to putting a couple different varieties of big time food plots in there. I mean, we wanted to have our bases covered for that deer because at the end of the day, we had a lot of time invested down in that area, and he was the only deer really, like I said, at the end of the day on our radar that we wanted to target. We were sitting in a big pine down on the far end, and usually, you know, the first time we go into Death Valley, we try to set that tree because the beauty of it is you can literally see pretty much the entire food plot from one end to the other, from the hill all the way down to the creek bottom, and it's a great observatory stand. And honestly, that first time, you don't know exactly where those deer are coming from. And sure enough, we get in there, and just like Widelow done the year before, Here he comes off the hill, and man, just seeing your target deer and laying eyes on him for the first time of the year and knowing you got a chance at that deer, my heart was running out of my chest.
I thought that sucker was coming off that hill. That's all right. I don't know if he'll make it down here, but we'll kill him tomorrow night. I thought that's probably what he was doing, but 9 different bucks tonight. Only one mature one. And that was the deer we come in here. That's the Kansas 8.
I mean, this is exactly why we go through the efforts that we do on the Raven, is to find and hopefully be able to put our tag on a deer like this. I mean, these are exactly the kind of deer we're looking for on the Raven. Big mature deer. And this one, honestly, was not the biggest deer horn-wise that we had on the farm, but just for some reason, he just got under my skin like none other this year. This year was a weird year, you know. I mean, Cody shot a bonus buck. That's always nice when you have a deer like that show up on the Raven. Hosey shot a nice mature 8-pointer that we had been after. But we really, up until that point, we hadn't had that one deer, the kind of deer that we're really striving for and hoping for to grow and be able to get a shot at on the Raven.
The Raven Project is brought to you by Grizzly Coolers, adventure guaranteed for a lifetime.
Precisely.
Hooeyman, your land, your legacy.
We're not out of the woods yet, son.
Hunt Stand, hunt like a pro. Baker Implement, trusted equipment of the Raven Project.
It may have seemed crazy the morning that I got up in rifle season and decided to go to Death Valley, but in the back of my head, I knew that Death Valley was the Kansas 8's home. I knew that was his core area. And he'd been kind of MIA in there for a while, but it almost gave me the reassurance that we needed to go in there, because in the back of my mind, I knew at some point he was going to show back up in there. I figured that he was locked down on a different part of the farm, chasing does, locked down with does. And I just knew in the back of my head, at some point, he's going to be back to his home.
Buck, come around the point. That's a pretty good buck. Hey, bigger buck behind. You see that bigger one? Kansas 8. Yes. When he comes out from behind that pine tree, I'm gonna kill him. Yes. Let me shoot him right there. Are you good? Here we go. He's down. He's down. We've hunted that deer all season and finally got a crack at him. I looked up down, there was a buck come out in the big time plot around the corner. It was a 3-year-old 8-pointer. I looked back, I saw a bigger buck behind him, instantly knew it was the Kansas 8. I just smoked him.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. That's him. We've been chasing this sucker, I mean, all year long. From the first part of bow season, he was consistent on this food plot we call Death Valley, and we didn't have our first bow camp till towards the middle part of October, and by then the acorns had fell, hunting got tough, and we actually saw him a couple times out of this food plot and didn't get him shot. Come back in, I just had a sneaking suspicion this morning. He's been locked down with does. We've seen him locked down with does a couple times, and I just had a sneaking suspicion. This right here is right in his core area, and I thought maybe when he got off of a doe, he would come back in here, and sure enough, he stepped out in the big time plot this morning. And man, what a cool story on our own farm. You know, we've worked hard, we've put in time on our Raven farm here, and to see it all come together, man, on a deer that I chased all year, I can't tell you how much this deer means to me. We're gonna be doing some celebrating tonight, I can promise you.
I wish I could sit back and say that, you know, everything was peaches and everything went exactly as planned this year, but the Raven has proven that nothing ever goes right and nothing ever goes as planned. But at the end of the day, man, we can't complain. We got an awesome deer camp here, and even with all the breakdowns, even, you know, getting all the new stuff in, the rut hut in, we finally brought it full circle and made it work somehow, some way this year. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't trade this camp or the people that this camp consists of for anything in the world.